Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat Five segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show. What is up? Welcome back to Drummers on Drumming, presented in association with Big Fat Snare Drum. I'm your host, Ben Hilsinger, and today we've got another installment of Big Fat 5, a segment where I talk to drummers about the stories and records that shaped their sound. Today's guest is Lucy Ritter, a New York, New Jersey native who picked up drums at just 9 years old and was already landing professional gigs at 14. After 3 years at Jacobs School of Music at Indiana University, she made the bold decision to leave and join her first major tour, the Broadway musical An Officer and a Gentleman. That gig opened up doors and eventually leading to her being offered the drum chair for the Grammy Award-winning musical Jagged Little Pill. These days, Lucy has stepped away from the Broadway scene and taken on an exciting new role as the drummer for one of today's fastest rising pop acts, Chappell Roan. And so we dig into how she landed that gig and explore the 5 records that have profoundly influenced her drumming style today. This episode has been a long time coming, so let's dive in, and hope you enjoy my conversation with the incredibly talented Lucy Ritter. Cheers. We had coffee a year and a half ago when you had either just moved to LA or were just about to, I forget.
It was 2 years ago.
Wow, yeah.
It was 2 years ago, yeah, because it's November. Over 2 years ago. I was here in September of 2022 because I was here with Jagged Little Pill, which was the Broadway show that I was a part of, and I met up with you, and you were super gracious to me and kind to meet up with me. I was just trying to meet some people in LA because I was here for a month at the Pantages, and I didn't move to Los Angeles till July of 23 because I was with that Jagged Little Pill thing for a year.
So yeah, you're in the new city for a month at a time, right? Or 6 weeks at a time?
With that Broadway stuff, those bigger union shows, my first Broadway tour, no. But Jagged, I was there LA a week, SF a week, and then once that kind of died, sorry, not a week, a month. After that, it became a week, maybe 2 weeks. But yeah, it's pretty long sit-downs. It's not touring in the sense of what we do now, one-nighters, but yeah.
In all honesty, do you like that style? I mean, would you recommend that to someone who wants to play music?
The Broadway thing? The Broadway thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be totally honest. There's a reason I left. Am in the place that I am now. For me personally, I just wanted to perform. I love shows. I love being on stage. I love seeing the band. I love seeing the audience. I like seeing the way music interacts with humans. I think it's really cool. So for me, Broadway did not work because playing in a pit or for a drummer playing in a box, whatever room they usually...
Yeah, a separate room.
Yeah, they audit you to a room this. It would be the basement of the theater, the storage closet. But yeah, that's not for me. Just because there's people that love it because they really thrive off of the technical and they don't want to be seen and they love the precision that it takes to play. You're playing 8 shows a week, 3-hour show. You're not subbing out because you're on tour. You don't sub out when you're a touring musician. It's not like you're on Broadway in New York City and you can call a sub. So there's people that love it, and I'm still friends with all those people. For me, it was not it for me. But playing Broadway is fulfilling. I could see myself playing in New York, subbing for friends, not having to play, 8 shows a week. Because the art form itself, I grew up a theater kid. I think it's fascinating, and I think it's very important to society is live theater. But yeah, I much prefer what I do now, and I'm thankful to do what I do now. But yeah, that's my take on that.
Great. No, it's very diplomatic. But yeah, so we had coffee, and at that point you were not playing with Chappell. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown, as much as you can, of leaving Jagged saying yes to the Chappell gig, I'm assuming, and I'm putting words in your mouth, that you didn't know it was going to be the gargantuan tidal wave that Chappell has become. And I just saw you at ACL. You killed it. I mean, you just fit so well in that massive environment. Your drums sound awesome. You sound awesome. But to go from leaving that to where you are now, how did it happen?
Yeah, it's a crazy uphill. I don't even know if it's a climb because it felt like just a skyrocket, right?
Yeah.
Because I joined with her that was her first bus tour, was just over a year ago, which is pretty crazy.
Wow.
But September of 2023, I joined the band, and we did a 7-week headline tour for her release of Midwest Princess, the album, which came out in September of 23. But yeah, I mean, when I decided that I couldn't do the Broadway thing, I moved to Los Angeles in July of 23, and it was during a break from Jagged because I still had to commit to my year contract. So I had a month off in July. I had gotten like a house through friends that I knew. A lot of them were like from Berkeley, which I did not go to Berkeley. I went to Indiana. But I had met them like, through music. They offered me a room. It started in June. I wasn't there in June, went there in July. And in that time, and like I often tell people where they're like, how do I get this gig? And like you and I talked about this because when I was with you 2 years ago, like I was trying to figure out how to get a gig. Mm-hmm. And everybody's always trying to figure out how to get a gig. Like, it's the crisis that we wake up with and, every day. Even when you have a gig, you're still like, well, how do I get the next one? Like, yep. And it's one of those things where, especially if you're just starting, like I was, where I didn't have many connections in Los Angeles. I didn't go to USC. I didn't go to Berkeley. I was just online and using the free resources that is Instagram and finding out who the people were that were like hiring. And taking the job very linearly, which was like, well, there's people who hired musicians. How do I get in with those people? And, I started following music directors while I was with Jagged Little Pill months before I moved to Los Angeles. And anytime they would post on their stories, I need a drummer, or like fill out this form, I would fill out the form. Like I would message them that I could be the drummer in Los Angeles, even though I wasn't there. I was ready to split at any time. And I kind of realized these MDs didn't want to hire me because I wasn't there in Los Angeles. So once I moved there, I made it very known that I was there and was just like, I'm moving to Los Angeles, on social media. And I thankfully got asked by a music director named Heather Baker, who's part of Music Direction Group, which is a really strong music direction group in Los Angeles. They have, I think at least 5 music directors in that company, and they MD a bunch of different people. And she saw I was moving here, and, what's cool about Heather is she's often looking for female musicians. And the Chappell gig was looking for a new drummer, a female drummer. She had a couple of drummers before that hadn't worked out. And so they wanted me to audition. And like I moved there, and the next day got the audition materials, and I had no drums. I had none of my stuff. So thankfully, like some of the boys in the back house, we had 2 homes on the property, like let me use their drums in their studio. And I filmed the 2 songs. And yeah, it's so funny you said how I like match the show and the energy, because that seems to be the trend, is like with why people have any interest in my playing now, is because I have this energy and this performance and this sound. And when I took that video a year ago, like I was so different, like of a player. Like it looked like I had been playing in a room for 2 years, by myself. I was shy. I was more like, I was smaller. I didn't hit the drum to get that kind of tone the way I hit now, which Heather has really pushed me about hitting the drums, like really hitting the drums, to the point of I was like really struggling to sustain my physical health to play the drums like that. I didn't think I was going to get the gig. I didn't know who she was. I'd never listened to her music. I heard the 2 songs. It was pretty surprised by like the way the songs, it was Femininomenon, and I was like, what is this song? Like, I was just so confused. And then I ended up having an interview with Chappell, which is very rare. This hardly happens in this industry, I found out, is interviewing with the artist, because usually the artist isn't involved if they're like a larger scale pop artist, or, they have a call with you. I had an in-person interview. And
oh, it was in person too.
In person, yeah. And it was actually, I think, like super effective, and a reason why I'm still with her, because we kind of just like got to know each other, and in a way that wasn't fake, like a phone call. Like, it was very real, like about living on a bus and like how you get along with people and those kinds of things that, like, I taught when people ask about getting a gig, it's like, well, are you a good person? And I don't mean that as in like, oh, I'm a good person. Like, no. Really ask yourself, like, are you clean? Are you considerate of other people? Like, like, how do you take care of your body physically so you can be on tour for 8 weeks? And I had that interview and I ended up getting the gig. And after that first headline tour, I could tell, like, after the first show, the fans were different. They're obsessed. Like, she sold out a 7-week headline tour, 1,000 to 3,000 cap rooms. The smallest room was like 200 people in Montreal. I mean, that's really small. And like, she's selling them out, and then we go to Europe and we do a van tour in December. In December of this past year, we did a van tour. And again, like, small rooms, like 300 cap rooms. Berlin was 300 cap. And then, like, in September, 2 months ago, we played a 9,000 cap arena in Berlin. So the trajectory, I mean, obviously I wasn't expecting it, and I saw it happen, and it changed my life too. And it happened at a very specific time, like that Good Luck Babe song and that Coachella performance. And then we did every festival known to man in the United States. And people were just dying for that live show. They were dying for what she was going to say, what's she going to wear. The fashion is a huge part of what we do. The makeup, the glam, like, it's a whole thing. And it's theater. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also why, like, I resonated with it, because I know theater. So it was like, I know the performance and the live and what she's trying to get out of the audience. And yeah, and then I'm still around. Thank God. I mean, I do love the gig. Even though it has been hard at times, for sure. I mean, it's crazy blow up. Like, I'm very lucky to be in the few people that get to experience something like that. And yeah, it's not easy, but it's like, if you can stay on and they don't try and get someone who's played this level of gigs before, yeah, it's a really cool experience. I'm very grateful for that. Yeah.
Well, obviously before all this, you've been an amazing drummer for a long time. And so let's hop into why the hell, or how the hell, you became who you are today. So before we get into your Big Fat Five, what was the criteria when I asked you to pick your top 5 of the albums that shaped you? How did you narrow it down?
These 5 albums came at a very specific time. When you first texted me, and I've been listening to your podcast for a minute, like since I was in college, I think. When you asked me, I was nervous because I was like, I have no idea. But then they immediately came within like 3 minutes, and I realized it's all of the albums that shaped me as a live player in the context of what I want to do now. Like, perfect. What I am doing now. Versus there were so many albums growing up that shaped me then. But then there was a shift when I was in school and college. And I was like, I'm going to be a live touring drummer. I'm going to play pop, rock, and funk and whatever I can play. And then I started listening to albums that really catered towards that. And that's when these, like, immediately came to me. And they were these albums that really shifted my mindset on the drums as, like, a professional, I guess. Yeah.
I love that. Well, people listening, from that perspective, you are in, there's very few bands that are probably more sought after in the massive way that you guys are right now. So the first one is A Love Supreme. The artist is John Coltrane. Released year is 1965. And you put track 2 and 3, which is part 2, Resolution, and then part 3, Pursuance. And the drummer is Mr. Elvin Jones. So yeah. Talk about it a little bit, and then we can listen to a clip of one of those songs. But Lucy, take it away.
Yeah, so this album I got into my sophomore year of college, and this was the first time that I got to study drum set again after like a year and a half of not studying drum set. And I was trying to really get good at drum set. And my professor had told all of us in the drum set studio there, he was like, you all need to study A Love Supreme. He was like, this is probably the most important album in all of jazz music. And he told us to go to the drum practice rooms and turn off the lights, play in the complete darkness because there's no windows, and play along. Even though it's very difficult to play along to this album because it's out. It's out. It can feel timeless. Like, there's instruments besides the drum set in there. There's gongs and such. And so I would do that, and it really helped me, like, feel Well, Elvin's playing is so aggressive and so forward, and it helped me feel like I could create my own voice on the drums without singing, without the literal voice. It was this like aggressive, like melodic playing that's so rare to hear from a drummer. And the album is just so emotional. It's sad. Like it's really a sad album. And I was a huge jazz kid, like, and this album was just next level for me at the time. I don't listen to it on the day anymore, but yeah, this album honestly changed my whole perspective of what could come out of the drums in terms of emotion and aggression and happiness and sadness. So that's why I love this album.
I love it. And you also put reactionary. So how much do you incorporate that with pop music?
Yeah, his playing is really reactionary. That's why I wrote that down. And he's listening so hard. And that's the key with jazz, right? It's like listening, reacting. He's listening and reacting in a way that's still his own voice, but he's countering the melodies and he's playing with them. I try to implement that in my pop gig. It's not like it is in jazz at all. I mean, if you're reacting to the vocalist all the time, they're going to give you a good old yell and tell you to chill. Right? A lot of what we do now is like holding it down so that the singer can be comfortable. But there's accents and there's times where like I'll notice that, you know, if Chappell's doing a repetitive thing with her voice, whether it's like da 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 da, I'll accent it the last time, and then I'll, you know, the MD will notice and she'll be like, oh, let's do that, or just Lucy do that, or full band do that, if I have the opportunity to. So yeah, I think that's a skill that can be used in any style though, and in the future gigs that I play separate from Chappell, where maybe I have more freedom. I love counterplay. I love reactionary playing. That's like my favorite thing.
Well, do you want to listen to Resolution or Pursuance?
Do Resolution.
All right, here we go. It's so aggressive and like forward, but in time. And then when they hit the time, the swing, the drums and bass, it's so locked. Because when they're playing over like the melody, the head, Elvin's pretty, like it's even hard to follow. And it's cool, like the metric modulation, he does like straight 16th notes, and yeah, it's just so awesome. Yeah, I love that. That's a great clip. And we were talking about Jeremy Taggart. We both went to the American Hi-Fi show before recording this, and Jeremy actually has on his Big Vat 5 episode, Elvin Jones played on an Our Lady Peace song, and so Jeremy was able to, this is obviously way later in Elvin's career, and so Jeremy has a fun story about being able to do like a double drum thing with Elvin Jones, which is insane. So talking to you, Lucy, if you want to listen to that episode,
I'm
you're
gonna
a fan of
listen to
Elvin. But all right, so number 2, the album is Ear Food, and the artist is Roy Hargrove, released in 2008. A few of the songs you want to talk about, I might butcher this, but it's Strasbourg / St. Denis, The Stinger, and Mr. Clean. And then Motez Coleman is the drummer.
Yeah. I don't know if this is lame, but I don't know that much about the drummer.
That's fine.
I love this album. This was just a huge album for me at the end of high school. So when I was like 17. These are like the same in terms of the 2 last jazz albums that I'll mention that still influence me right now, because Strasbourg St. Denis on this album, it's like a legendary song, but I played it a ton with the band that I had in high school. I had this like little jazz combo that I made, and we played gigs, and it was fun. And
Nice.
that song we would play all the time, like literally so many times that it was embarrassing because it was so good, and we always just enjoyed it, and we got better playing it. And yeah, this whole album is just the epitome of like tasteful playing, pocket playing, listening, time. Like, oh my god, they're all so in time. Like, the feel is crazy. If you just want to know how to play good funk, pocket R&B, and for Roy Hargrove, who started pretty straight ahead player, trumpet player, and he got pretty progressive by like this point. This was 2008, right?
Yep.
Yeah, this was like jazz hip hop combo. This was, Robert Glasper is coming up and like from this kind of music. So this is just like an album that really helped me embody funk pocket playing, which is one of my favorite styles to play. And yeah, if we listen to Strasbourg, it's so tasty.
All right, here we go. Here's Strasbourg. So number 3, the album is Grow. The artist is Chon, and the release year is 2015. Key tracks is but you said all of them. And the drummer, Nathan Camarena, Brian Evans, and Matt Garska. Yeah, some polarizing drummers in that mix, but go ahead.
Yeah, we're going a different route now. We're out of the jazz world. Chon is one of those bands. I got into them in high school too because of my brother. My brother showed me a lot of harder rock or like prog, math rock. He's really into metal. And Chon was one of those bands that he showed me that I actually didn't tell him to stop playing because I usually was like, stop the screaming. I don't want the screaming. Yeah, Chon's just crazy. Like, I loved the way they sounded, the drums. I like all of their albums, but this album I was just listening to all the time and was just like super obsessed with. It was a style of playing that seemed really like unique to me because it was super melodic, and it was using the drum set in a way I wasn't really used to, which was like playing grooves with the toms and like playing grooves that are super linear and like using every single like piece on the kit as a part of the groove, which is still like rare. That's punk playing, and that's like hardcore playing, and like, people that play like that, when you are able to play grooves like that, it's in this very specific type of music. So Chon is cool. Like, this whole record's really cool, and I just love the playing, and it's disgustingly show-offy, and it's nerdy music, and they use mixed meter all the time. And yeah, I chose number 12. Matt Garska played on that last track, and it's just kind of a show-off track where he's just disgusting. So I thought it'd be fun to listen to for us to nerd out on. But I was obsessed with story and book and can't wait. Like, I don't know, it's just fun, and the vocals are fun. So yeah, this is an album that, and I tried to learn some of these songs and they're so hard to learn. So yeah, this is just a really good album.
All right, well, number 4, and this one is another left turn or right turn, whatever. And the album is Live at Velfair. Earth, Wind & Fire is the artist. Released year is 1996. A few of the key tracks: In the Stone, September, Let Your Feelings Show, Let's Groove. Sonny Emery was the drummer. So, yeah, take it away, and then we'll listen to one of those tracks.
So I wanted to include a live album because I think listening to live albums is really helpful if you're trying to be a live drummer, because playing drums in a studio versus live, it's just different. Like, you're not going to play drums like you would in each setting the same. So live albums are really helpful for I listen to live albums as much as I can and try to study them, even if it's like I go on YouTube and I watch a show on I listen to a show from YouTube, because I'm always curious like what people are doing, because there's right now with a Chappell gig we play the album like pretty straight. And I was talking to like one of my mentors who had played for but when she blew up 20 years ago, this pop artist, they played the album like super verbatim the way it sounds in the record. And I think it's always interesting, like at a time right now where Chappell's really big, you want to play the album the way that people hear it because they're listening to it a billion times and they're obsessed with it. But with Earth, Wind & Fire, this was cool because this was the first like live album that really exposed me to what a live show could be, because I wasn't going to a lot of like pop shows growing up. Like, I wasn't really into that. I was just going to like Smalls and Blue Note and like jazz clubs in New York because I was lucky enough to live in New Jersey, so I could go like on the weekends. But I didn't know like really what live shows were like with pop artists. And so this is like a pop album in my opinion, and the way they play it live, it's executed so well. They set up hits really well. They're one of the tightest live bands ever. I think that this album is just a testament to like the musicianship of everyone in the band. Like, this is pop music, like, that was popular in the 80s. And like this album, I think a lot of us at school when I was in college, like we all learned it. We tried to learn this album as if we were playing a live show. And I kind of realized like what it was going to be like if I got a pop gig, because I was like, oh, it's a lot of time. And then it's setting up hits and vocals. And so I realized like how fun it is to like throw it down and hold it together and hear the reaction of the audience, which is cool. I'll strive to sound like this for the rest of my life. Like, this is really excellent live playing.
That's a great point. Listen to more live records if you want to be a live player. It seems like an obvious thing, but I don't listen to a lot of live records, so that's good advice. But which song do you want to listen to? In the Stone, September, Let Your Feelings Show, Let's Groove?
Can you play the end of September into Let Your Feelings Show?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I wanted to get that transition, and they do that for most of the songs, which is something I didn't mention before we started listening, but transitions are a huge thing in live shows, especially pop. If you're with an MD that cares about that stuff, or like a lot of high-level gigs, like you'll have hardly any silence, except for planned silence when the artist will speak. So yeah, I always loved those transitions. They're just so insanely seamless, and thinking about, them 30 years ago playing like that, it's just so ahead of its time. And this is what people are trying to do now. But obviously we have tracks, and they don't have any tracks. Like, they're playing with a 15-piece band. So it's just really cool and really tight playing, and yeah, transitions, and he fills so well, just so musically. So yeah, I love that record.
All right, so got to go to this one, and I'm so happy. And the album is Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. Artist is Blink-182, released year's 2001, and the drummer is Mr. Travis Barker. So take it away.
I wasn't like into punk stuff growing up, not like other people were. I loved like Paramore forever, but I mean, in terms of like, Blink or Green Day or Sum 41 or any of those bands, like I, wasn't into it because I was just like nerding out on jazz. But my brother was always into this kind of playing. And in the past, like, I don't know, 4 years, I've definitely gotten more into this style of playing. It's super fun. The music doesn't take itself seriously, but it's like so technical. And what Travis Barker does, like whether you like him or not, is he created a sound on the drums that's identifiable anywhere. Like he can play on anyone's track and you're going to know it's him. And he's got these grooves where he uses the toms and the whole kit, and it's his sound. And like he tried to make a sound that was his own and a voice, because there's only 3 of them. It's just cool studying and like listening in that way, in that capacity where you're actively listening, like, wow, like the drums are the melody in this song. Because like the bass will just be chugging, chugga, 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 and the guitar. And the one thing that's going on is the drums. Mm-hmm. And like the vocals sometimes will even be like, ba, 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 like not busy. Mm-hmm. So for him to just be like, it's just like, what is going on? Like why? Why did you do that? But he had the freedom to do that, and it became his sound. And like he's a legend, whether you like him or not. So this album I like listened to, and then First Date, just like learned that song and covered it, and the music's so fast. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you guys are playing that with your right hand for so long. Yep. And I was like, okay, this is chops. And I'm like a marching band. I did marching band for 6 years. And I was like, this is all rudimental chops. Like, Travis is a marching band kid. Like, he still makes videos on his little marching band pad. It was like fast hands. And I love hands. I love technical, like, getting really fast hands. I've always been into that kind of stuff, like rudimentary playing. He's an example of how to use your fast hands really fast. I mean, and trying to learn this music is so hard for me now too, because it's fast and it's energy and it's like doing it for so long and so hard. So yeah, this was an album that got me started into learning this kinds of music, which I play more of this stuff and more into it now. Yeah, I feel like I was missing out on, like, I don't know, learning this stuff, but now I'm into it more, and it's a totally different challenge for me too, is like playing loud, fast for that long, hard. They play so hard. And this stuff I find is way more applicable to what I'm doing now, which is like the pop thing, is playing hard and fast without a break for an hour and a half. Because that's how I feel in the Chappell gig. I feel like I'm hitting so hard for so long. So it's like, how do I get the chops of playing loud for a really long time? Because I can play for a long time and not like loud like that. So yeah, this album like was really pivotal for me, and now I am more into the style playing and more into studying this kind of playing, and yeah, it's badass. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, and showmanship when it comes to Travis, that's one thing you can definitely take away from him. He's fun to watch. Here is First Date.
When you smile, I melt inside. I'm not worthy for a minute of your time. I really wish it was only me and you. I'm jealous of everybody in the room. Please don't look at me with those eyes. Please don't hint that you're capable of lies. I dread the thought of our very first kiss, a target that I'm probably gonna miss. Let's go, don't wait. This night's almost over. Honest, let's make this may last forever, forever and ever. Let's make this last forever, forever and ever. Let's make this last forever.
So
those rolls on the hi-hat always. Those like 5, 7 stroke rolls. It's also just like, how do you play the drums and not be like everybody else? Which is so hard. The challenge I find with the less it is yours, like you're playing for somebody, I'm playing for this band, you're playing their music, you're playing the record, and your job is to play that super tight and exactly the way they want it. But when you have the luxury like he did, where you're on the records and you're making up all your own parts and everyone's saying go for it, like that's such a cool luxury. So I want to just making a band just to experiment and doing that kind of stuff is my next goal, because it's just like we have our gigs and they're amazing, but then there's like the whole other side of music where it's like clickless. Like playing without playing to a click, without, getting this track, making sure the tracks are on. Like, let's play music with 3 people. Like, there are only 3 of them. That's so cool,
And it sounds full as hell.
So full. Like, I don't know. It's very cool.
Well, Lucy, that is your Big Fat 5. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for giving amazing insight. And thanks for also just being a very nice person. And I really appreciate you as a friend.
Thank you. I appreciate you too. You hung out with me before I was even here, living here. So, no, I appreciate it. And yeah, this podcast rocks. So I'm glad you're still doing it. It's really cool.
Oh, thank you. And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using Isotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at isotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye!